have my apron, I would like to show you how to add some basic details and how to cut and sew, but also to attach patterns onto the main pattern piece. What I want to do with this is I want to show you how to create a basic pocket, and this is by using the polygon tool and the internal tools. So what I will do first is use the internal rectangle tool, and I will go over to my apron and I will click in the 2D window and I make the little square where I want the pocket to be. And now you see that I have the first line for my pocket. If I want to create a pattern piece, I can now right click and clone as pattern, and now my pocket is also in the 2D window. If I want to stitch the pocket flap to the apron, then I can go up here where you have the stitching tools, and I will select the segment sewing, and you see I can select the different lines I want to stitch, and again we see it reverses sewing lines. That's not a problem. I can right click, reverse sewing, and everything will be fine. And then I do simulation, so it brings it to where I want it to be. And here you see I have my first pocket. Okay, maybe I would also like to have a flap for the pocket. I could first maybe copy the internal line I already have, and I right click to paste, and I click where I would like this pocket to be. And instead of having it be just hanging, I would also like it to have a flap. So first I'm gonna copy the pattern that should be the pocket, and I right click, paste. And this time I didn't do a duplicate, I did it separately, but it's also possible for you to do a duplicate with sewing. And then, yes, I can simulate again. And you see I have a mistake here in the sewing, so it didn't take the last flap. So what I can do is I can pause and then click on my selection tool and see why this happened. We can also try to just simulate it again. Okay, let's check with the editing sewing tool. I think it's just a small glitch, so let's try to strengthen the fabric, simulate again. Yeah, it's just a small glitch, as you can see. So always remember to be patient and just check if everything is working properly. And in this case it is. So the last step is going to be to add the flap. What you could do is you could copy your pattern, right click, copy, and then paste. And then you can use the edit pattern tool, and then we can transform the points to maybe make the flap. And this, you see that the top is 99.3 and 99.3, so they still match. So you could decide to maybe just add it here on top. And we can also, like we learned previously, work with the edit curvature to try to make it a bit nicer. Okay, so this is just a quick draft, but I'm gonna sew my top of my pocket. You wouldn't sew it to the pocket because then your pocket will be closed. Let me show you. You can do this, and it's technically still open, but usually you would do as on the pattern, you see? Then you cannot enter your pocket. So what you would do instead is that on your pattern, I'm gonna remove the stitch line. Click on the stitch line, delete, and instead I'm gonna do an internal line on the pattern piece right above where the pocket is. and it's a little bit crooked, so I will just move it a bit. Okay, now I am able to do the segment sewing again. Space for simulation, and then you see it's been flipped. You pull a bit, and then your pocket will match better. But as previously mentioned, try to check why it doesn't look as nicely. So go to edit pattern, and then you can move and now we simulate again, and you see the placement is nicer, but of course we can move it to the same height, simulate, and now you have a pocket that you can actually go into. So you can go to the property editor on the right, and then remember to add thickness, or else it's not going to have the physical properties. Now you can simulate again, and it will match a bit better. What you can also then choose is, remember we learned to use our pins, so you can decide to tack it, simulate, and then it will stay in place. But of course I would recommend to use a button instead. If you want to add a button, you can go on the left side of the 3D editor, and you see the option to add a button. So I can click on it, and there's a button and a buttonhole. If I click on button, I can go to my pattern piece and just click, and you see it has added the button. But of course you don't want your button on the flap, so let's go a step back, and we select, we move this up a bit, and we can also remove the pin. Sorry, we can also remove the pin because we decided that we're gonna do our buttons. And let's add the original view back. Yes. And now we freeze and we move our pattern up. And now we add the button first. So we go to the button, selecting it, put it on the pattern it should be, and then we go back to button, and you see buttonhole, and then you can add that on the flap. And if you would like to close the button, you see the third button below is fasten button. And now you see it's locked, and you click simulation, space, and your button has been closed. And now it's always, as a previous example, is that you pull a bit to get your button into place. And if it doesn't work, you can right click, reset 3D position, and then you see this is already helping to better get your button in place. Alright, so now we have the button in place. We need to have a look why this one is flipping. This is the inside, so we can right click, strengthen, and it will help it fall better into position. Yes. Okay, zoom out a bit. Let's straighten out our apron. We have a pocket. Maybe we would like to add as well a belt. What you could do is, we have already here a band. We can copy paste the pattern piece, and then we can make it wider. And I would suggest to reset the 2D arrangement, bring it around the waist, remember that we have the arrangement points, so you can also click arrangement points and it will be right around your waist. And then we can use the sewing tool. Now we can click on space, and now we have our waistband.